and welcome once again to Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen, and this channel is all about conversations in colour. If you like what I'm presenting so far, perhaps you might like to subscribe and hit that notification bell, or at least give it a like. It'll help the channel grow. Now, just to recap, from last week, I talked about black and white as colours that were used once to determine a relationship between masculinity and femininity. And I left off with a little bit of a teaser. This week, we're going to explore that in a little bit more detail. So without mucking around, let's get into it. Now, last week when I was talking about black and white being associated with femininity and masculinity, I said that masculinity was associated with black because it allowed for people who met new people coming along to their tribe in prehistoric times or their family groups, would not know who these strangers were, would not know their capabilities, and so therefore they were considered to be a danger, as was darkness. Darkness always hid predators, and so blackness and masculinity were linked together. Conversely, white and femininity were linked because white was something that you could see. You knew that females produced children, and children tended to be born as a result of what they believed in those days was sunlight, sky, water, air, wind. All those things that were found in the natural environment that allowed things to grow, as did babies. But when we developed words for colour as we came into civilization, we started to see that colours became slightly different in value. We still used black and white to designate masculinity and femininity, but this was done in a slightly different way. In Greek times, white was associated with femininity because of the word purity. Females were considered to be pretty well sacrosanct. Males, on the other hand, they could get up to anything, and so therefore they were considered to be black at heart, if nothing else. But when you were to describe your mother or father in those days, and I'm assuming, of course, that we have a word for blue, we didn't in Greek times, I might add, but the concept was there even if the word hadn't been established. So we had two types of women. We had those that were considered to be white and blue. We already knew that blue was associated with femininity because it was a colour that was associated with peace and harmony and the ability to create comfort for those around. But blue and white were considered to be colours associated with ideal femininity. Now, in these days, if I'm doing a colour analysis, someone might choose white over blue or blue over white. They have slightly different meanings, even though the colours are the same. The colour below always determines what's going on internally. The colour on the upside, the top of the combination, always determines what is happening in the real world. So here on the left, we see white over blue. Blue internally means someone who is peaceful and calm and inclined to be very nurturing as a person. And white in the real world tended to suggest, and still does, that this person is able to nurture anything, anywhere, anytime, anyhow. So this person is pretty much a voluntary sacrifice. This person allows themselves to be used and abused if necessary in order to maintain the peace that is necessary for their own internal workings. Now, on the other hand, here on the right, we have blue in the real world and white in the internal world. Now, blue in the real world means someone who does things to maintain the peace, whereas white in the internal world means a person who is restless, who is curious, who's constantly looking for something that will enable them to feel calm and peaceful in the real world. This makes this person rather talkative. They're curious about everything and they will explore everything, but at the same time, they're giving out an aura of being quiet and a good listener, and someone who is eager to learn everything there is to learn that will enable peace to be established. Now contrast that with white and red. Here we have the colours also with white on top, red underneath, and then red on top, white underneath. This is the masculinity. And here we have the white over red, where red is colour of determination internally, the colour of power, of action, of a needing to get things done, as opposed to maintaining peace, of femininity. And in the real world, this person will respond to anything with the ability to be fairly objective in what they do. Both the white over blue and the white over red constitute ideal parenting. These are the ones that will respond to anything in the real world by either acting on it, if you're a masculine personality, or maintaining the peace, looking for the center, the middle road, if you like, as the feminine colour. The red over white has the opposite effect. Here we have red in the real world and white in the internal world. This can be a little bit volatile because red means acting out in any direction and white means anything will trigger it. So this person, while still fairly idealized and capable of responding to any emergency that might arise instantly, quite often by putting their own lives in danger, this person is not as an ideal person, just as the blue over white isn't quite as an ideal mothering person or feminine energy as one would have expected. Let's now have a look at what happens when we link those with black. Now, even just looking at these colours gives off a vibe of darkness. And indeed, that's exactly what happens. The black over blue, once again, we have the blue internally, that is the need, the drive, the desire for peace and quiet at all costs. And in the real world, what does this person do? They close down. They clamp down. This person becomes depressed. And they become depressed in the sheer volume of things that they need to do. So this person actually becomes quite an effective listener, but not much of a doer. This person is likely to present in the real world as being someone you can trust because they won't give away your secrets. But by the same token, they're also not somebody that you can rely upon to respond instantaneously to something. They need to find that peaceful route before they can move on. Blue over black, on the other hand, is really quite detrimental as a potential mothering or potential femininity. Blue in the real world is someone who will do anything that they are told to do and do it silently, quietly. In fact, this particular combination is one that I would classify as shut up, do as you're told, get on with the job, don't complain. Those are the four idioms that we associate with blue over black, because internally this person is already secretive. They are already inclined not to want to share anything. They keep secrets. They have a lot of secrets. They are inclined to look for the negative in things rather than look for the positive. Yes, in the real world, they will carry out their duty and they will carry it out absolutely the way that the rules say they should. But that doesn't necessarily allow for adaptability, and it certainly doesn't allow for someone who you consider to be warm and nurturing and one that you would want to go to if you were in trouble, because this person is more likely to be a punitive mother. Similarly, we have red and black over red. Here, it's the masculine energy that is coming to the fore. When you have red in the internal world, This means a person who is agitated, easily jumping to want to do something. They're never able to settle. They're constantly seeking for new adventures. In the external world, however, they are restricted. And this is often a picture that is associated with those males who have some form of constraint. They may be incarcerated. Sometimes that is the problem. Other times, the constraint is something more to do with emotional life. So red and black together often designate some form of sexual identity issue. Now, what that issue is, well, that depends on the individual males and the other colours that they choose in an analysis. But just as a two-colour analysis, black over red bodes for someone who is pretty potentially aggressive internally, and in the real world, you really have to watch out because you don't know which direction they're going to jump. On the other hand, red over black is someone who is trying very hard to pretend in the real world that they are someone who is pretty daredevil, someone who is prepared to take risks, to have fun, to be energetic, to show off to his mates. But in the internal world, he's doing this because he feels incredibly dissatisfied with himself. He has no hope, no feeling of future good things happening. And so he tends to act out. Now, this sort of person is very likely to become someone who does things that are dangerous, either to himself or to others. Now, of course, there's no reason at all why masculinity and femininity, as espoused in red and blue, are associated purely with men or women. A woman can be red, black, or red, white, just as a man can be blue and white or blue and black. But what happens if we look instead at what happens when we have red and blue together? Red and blue together are masculine energies and feminine energies encompassed in the same person. Makes for an interesting combination, you would think. If the person is blue internally, that is, they are a seeker for peace and quiet and whatever it is that keeps things stable in their lives. In the real world, this person is likely to do something dangerous or highly active in order to try and maintain that peace. These, the red over blue, are actually ideal policemen. Why would you be like that? Well, they have to put their lives on the line in the real world in order to maintain the peace. And that's exactly what that combination says. It might be a male police person. It might be a female police person. It doesn't really matter. Red over blue always designates doing something active in order to maintain an internal logic, an internal peace, an internal rule book that exists. Conversely, blue over red does not make for an ideal policeman. This is someone who is angry on the inside nearly all of the time. They are hyperactive. They cannot settle down to anything. They're constantly wanting to make changes in the real world. But in the real world, nothing much changes. This is a person who is frustrated with the jobs that they are doing. If you don't like your job, then there's a good chance that blue on red are the colours that are attractive to you right now. In the real world, this person does the same as the blue and black. Shut up, get on with the job, do as you're told, don't complain. And internally, they are frustrated. They want things to change. They want to break free, but there's no chance of that. Now, interestingly, if you mix those colours together, blue and red always create a type of purple. Purple has multiple ideas associated with it. It has the idea of what do males and females produce? Children. So it has to do with childhood. It has to do with change, because when we take order and we disorganize it, as with red and blue, then we have chaos. So all of those things are associated with the colour purple. But we'll be looking at the colour purple sometime further down the track. I've kept this video short because I'm only introducing these colours, these combinations, until we get to the stage where we can actually look at proper reading. I certainly hope you'll be joining me for those, and this will be signing now. Again, if you like the idea of conversation in colour, please comment, because I'd really love to hear what you've got to say about it. Catch you later.